Greetings. We live in a realm of riddles, a place of puzzles. In my experience, the greatest treasures of life have been the questions of life. Why? Because questions put us on a quest, and we soon discovered that life is also a place of answers. Life gives us questions, and life gives us answers. But more than that, the quest can lead us to become truly alive. The journey bestows what the journey requires. So in this sometimes crazy world, what are the most important questions to ask? Well, there's your first question right there. The what question. Now you have 5 questions left. When, why, where, who, and how. Let's ask the where question. Where does the quest lead? The journey bestows what the journey requires, which is hopefully to an enlivening of your being and to a theory of everything, which is the name of this first series of the School of Love, a theory of everything, including love. The reason it's a theory of everything to include love is because in a quest to understand the true nature of love, and not just what is portrayed in fiction, or even demonstrated by our parents for that matter, we need a larger context. We need to look at the big picture. We need to ask big questions. And we need a theory of everything to see where love fits in the puzzle. There are other theories of everything out there, but what makes this different is that it questions where love fits in the sometimes precipitous balance of life. Love is conspicuously missing from our scientific quest to understand everything in the universe, which is surprising because it seems that love is the one thing most people are questing for and want in the world. As I used to hear my father sing while we kids sat in the back seat of the car, "What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of." If love is the only thing that there's just too little of, can science come up with a solution to bring more love into the world? With all we've uncovered in our scientific quest for knowledge and power, is the knowledge and power of love being included in the quest? Or is it perhaps the approach we're taking that needs to be questioned in our quest for a theory of everything, including love? In this program, we'll be looking at the art and science of love. This approach is inspired by the work of Rudolf Steiner, who pointed out the importance of including different perspectives in order to truly understand something. He pointed out how the arts and sciences each have their own innate powers, but when they are aligned together, as in past civilizations, which also included the esoteric arts and sciences, this is what made the civilizations great. Greatness lies in the cooperation of the artistic and scientific aspects of being. In our current civilization, this has yet to be fully realized. But we have a ripe opportunity to bring the power of the arts and the power of the sciences together. So now we can ask a how question. How can two seemingly opposite things be unified? And does love factor into this? Let us consider the power of love itself. The power of love has been noted over the ages in the arts, in poems and songs, including the song "The Power of Love" by Huey Lewis and the News. The power of love is a curious thing. Makes one man weep, makes another man sing. Change a hawk to a little white dove. More than a feeling, that's the power of love. Of course, we will not base our hypothesis solely upon the lyrics of a pop song, but we can acknowledge how it is the artists and poets of humanity who through experience and not just theory speak of love's power to move and change things like nothing else. Love makes one person weep, another person sing. It can lift us to the heights. It can drag us down to the depths of despair. More than a feeling, there's nothing like love in life. In fact, love seems to hold the power of life and death itself. So why leave love out of the equation when questing to understand the powers of the universe and what ultimately connects everything in the universe? Is it because love can seem so nebulous? Or is love perhaps seem simply too profound for us to comprehend at our current level of consciousness, and has yet to be seen as an evolutionary force to move us out of the swampaverse and into a future that waits our awakening? So in our quest for knowledge and power, our quest to explore the nature of time and space and everything in it, let us ask what? What is the one thing that underlies everything? You probably think I'm going to say love, but I would be jumping a little too quickly in our hypothesis. The one thing is actually two things, in a manner of speaking. Duality. Duality. I said it twice because duality means exactly that, two, and more specifically, a pairing of two, like time and space, knowledge and power, the arts and sciences, you and your boyfriend or girlfriend, the I and the other. Duality is a pairing of two things, opposite but complementary. There are many other dualities. You experience night and day, because there is light and dark, which produce hot and cold, evaporation and condensation, summer and winter, waking and sleeping. The list goes on. And what's the one thing we can say about all dualities? Relationship. It's all about relationships between two things. Interesting similarity to love. In fact, I'd like to share lyrics from another song, one I used to sing to my mother when I was 10 years old, from the musical Oliver. Where is love? Does it fall from skies above? Is it underneath the willow tree that I've been dreaming of? We're again asking a where question. Where does love exist in the universe? Where does it come from? Does it fall from skies above? Does it come from the cosmos? Or is it underneath the willow tree? Does it come from the earth itself? Or is it simply a product of the brain, as some scientists suggest, a vestigial leftover from earlier versions of sapienhood? Wherever it comes from, is it possible that love is an inherent power of the universe? Can it be seen in the workings of duality, such as electricity and magnetism, gravity and levity, propulsion and vacuum, heating and cooling, the expansion and contraction of the universe itself? I would have to say no. No, I do not see love inherent in the relationships of duality. Nevertheless, the hypothesis remains. Could the power of love, as more than a feeling, but a force of nature, be involved in the relationships of dualities, involved in reconciling all sets of opposites at the physical, mental, emotional, cultural, societal, political, economic, military, so forth levels? Is love a big enough power for that? We call it the universe, the oneness, the unified field, as if it were all one and everything connected. And it is. But everywhere we look, we see two-ness, dualistic relationships. So in the universe, there is a sense of unity, but paradoxically also a splitting into two-ness. Let us ask why. Why would things in the universe need to be split into two? Why might that be? In order to be dynamic rather than static? What would be the fun of living in a universe that is static, just being and nothing doing? Splitting into two makes things dynamic, like splitting an atom. Isn't that why you get into relationships? To make things more dynamic in your life, rather than sitting home alone, static? And I know some of you might be saying, oh, I like staying home alone. I don't have to be in a relationship. But even if you are home alone, there is still a lot of two-ness in the room. You have your front and back, your center and surroundings, your past and future, the left and right hemispheres of your brain conversing with each other. There's a lot of relationships going on even when you're home alone. You can't get away from it. In fact, you need to work with it. And we want to see if love, and a grounded and understanding of it, is the agency to bring together the dualistic dynamics of the universe in the best possible way, to move things forward in the best possible direction. If the oneness of the universe is full of two-ness, so that there can be dynamic movement, so there's actually something going on in space-time, we have a what question. Space and time for what? Shopping? Is there a reason to life? And if love is meant to be part of the equation, is there a reason to love? Which is the name of this opening session in the School of Love. Is there a reason to life? A reason to love? One of my favorite quotes from the Romantic poet Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, who was also very much a scientist, states that all separation takes place, that there can be a unification of a higher order. He observed this everywhere in nature. If we consider this reason for duality, the division into opposites, so reunification can result in a higher form, let us consider how this takes place. What happened when your mother and father united? They produced a third, potentially something of a higher order. You. Your mother and father, two separate beings, came together and produced a third. In fact, this was of a very high order. It was unification of multiple dualities, from the love in their hearts to the seed and egg in their reproductive organs, that produced you. And maybe you weren't the only offspring of your parents. Maybe they birthed other offspring, other thirds, out of the uniting of their two-ness. So is the point of two-ness three-ness? To produce something emerging from the middle? Is that what is going on in the universe? All these relationships of two-ness to simply produce newness? If so, this is absolutely astounding to consider. Out of the simplicity of two, infinite possibilities, infinite complexity. It's no wonder relationships could be so complicated, and we would rather sometimes sit home alone. Let's leave science for a moment and turn our attention to the art of love. When it comes to love, I'm sure you've heard at least once in your life that you need to love yourself before you can love another. You need to love yourself first before you can authentically love another. Otherwise, it would be something other than love. It would be you trying to get love for yourself through the other, which is egoism, which we'll look at more closely later. But first, let's do a love quiz. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love yourself? Just go with whatever number pops into your mind. And you might want to write these down to look at later when I give the love assignment. Has anyone ever explained to you how to love yourself? What self-love looks like? Next quiz question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the modeling you received for self-love? Just go with the first number that pops into your mind. And how about learning to love the other? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your current ability to love another? Again, just go with the first number that pops into mind. Next quiz question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the modeling and instruction you received on how to love another? Just go with the first number that pops into mind. One more quiz question. On a scale of 1 to 10, what will be the level of love skill you'll have after participating in the school of love? Again, just go with the first number that pops into mind. So you got some numbers on a scale of 1 to 10. You see where things are at and where things could go. But besides that, what did we just do there? We took a different approach to knowing. You could say a different way to accessing knowledge. To get those numbers, there was no calculating, no analysis, no logic, no linear thinking. We accessed knowledge in a different way because there are different ways to access knowledge. We've all been taught the linear way of knowledge, the scientific way to know, using forms of logic and rational thinking, which is very powerful and important to learn. But there is another side of a duality to explore here. In contrast to a linear, straight-ahead thinking, what would be its opposite? What would be its complement? Hint. There are only two types of lines in the universe. Another duality. Answer? Straight lines and curved lines. Everything in space is made of a combination of straight lines and curved lines, including the thinking in your inner space. There are two basic types of thinking, linear and lateral lines of thinking. We're well schooled in the linear, straight-ahead thinking, but ignore the fact that our mind actually works a lot of the time in a lateral movement. So we could say we have the power of linear, logical thinking, and we also have lateral thinking that is not limited to logic, but can move sideways, circular, in any direction it wants to go, outside the box of rational thinking. For example, I have a friend who drinks brake fluid. That's right, he's into drinking brake fluid, and I'm really concerned about it. Concerned he'll become addicted. But he's not concerned. He says he can stop any time. You may be laughing, or you may be scratching your head. If you're scratching your head, you may be thinking in a linear fashion, thinking, oh no, someone is drinking brake fluid, I could kill them. A plus B equals C. If you're laughing, you were able to go with the lateral movement, with the punchline that came out of left field. He says he can stop any time. He can stop any time because he's drinking brake fluid. Humor is a great example of lateral movement in the mind. It requires you to flow in unforeseen directions, to let go of expectations, which in itself is very empowering. It opens the way to see things from other perspectives, which is what empathy is all about. This is why lateral thinking is more heart-based or feeling-based, in contrast to brain-based linear thinking. Lateral thinking is another way to access knowledge, as we just saw in the love quiz. I was not asking your logical mind to assess yourself. I got you to move your mind in another way, using another power to access knowledge. And we know how important the duality of knowledge and power is. Knowledge is power. So we need to be using all our powers to access knowledge. I know this may be opening up some big questions for you, which is great, because this series is a quest for a theory of everything, including love. But let's hone in with a where question. Where does the combination of linear and lateral lead to? What's the third that's birthed in the middle? It could be big, very big. It could be omnidirectional cognition. Omnidirectional cognition is a big word, but simply means to think in all directions necessary. You're not limited. You can think straight forward when you need to, like scientists are good at. You can look at things sideways, which is what artists are good at. And we need both in the art and science of love. The artist works in ways sometimes referred to as emotive or feeling-based intelligence. There is a growing science around the intelligence of the heart. The HeartMath Institute, for example, has done much research into the relationship between the intelligence of the heart and the intelligence of the brain, and how to build coherence between the two. But in fact, our intelligence is actually threefold, based in the brain, the gut, and the heart. Developing all three is what it will take to employ omnidirectional cognition. And look at what sits in the middle, the third realm, the heart. How much importance does the heart play in overall intelligence? We'll have a closer look at that in a future session, and also challenge some scientific assumptions about the heart. For example, the heart is not actually a pump, as we've all been taught. That is an anatomical impossibility, and I will reference some of Rudolf Steiner's research around that. If you want to truly expand your knowledge and power, you'll want your power based on true knowledge, especially knowledge about yourself. So you'll be able to use all your powers. Your brain-based intelligence, your gut-based intelligence, and in the center of it all, the intelligence of the heart, which not so coincidentally is the same place we associate with love. This raises the question of genius. Contrary to popular notions, you don't have to be a genius to tap into genius. Genius is about access. You don't need a high IQ, higher education, or even higher credentials. Every human on the planet has access to the source, which is what the word genius means, from the Latin genere, which we derive words like generate, genus, gene, genie, and genesis, all referring to source. Genius literally means to give birth or bring forth, accessing source. And in this context, we are talking about the source, the same source from which everything is born, the third thing born from dualistic relationships in the universe, including love. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. But it also needs more of us tapping genius, tapping source, the intelligence of the universe, the intelligence of the unified field from our heart-centered field of intelligence. Let's now ask a why question. Why do we need to tap into genius? Why do we need to develop omnidirectional cognition? Why do we need this in the realm of space-time? I hear it sometimes said that time and space don't really exist, that time doesn't exist and space is an illusion. And I wholeheartedly half agree. From an atomic viewpoint, there is more emptiness in an atom than anything solid. It's 99.99999 empty vacuum. It's like an empty football field with a few players running around in it. So even though to our senses solid matter seems solid, it's really more space than solid, which makes it something of an illusion. However, if we don't honor our experience of solid matter, we're in for a big surprise if we try walking through a doorway without first opening the door. So what we experience of space has both an illusory and substantive side to it. Same thing with time. I hear people say time is an illusion. They say that time is just man-made, a tyrannical way to enslave people to a clock, to other people's agendas, that time doesn't really exist. And again, I wholeheartedly half agree. This is something of a half-truth. When we look out at space, there is certainly a sense of timelessness, yet we know nature has her rhythms. The daily cycle of the earth, monthly cycle of the moon, yearly cycle of the sun, etc. We can see things are born, live, and die. And we know at some point in time we will die. As life on earth is temporal, everything has a shelf life. So space and time have both an illusory side and a substantive side. To our senses, it appears as one thing, but upon closer scrutiny, we come to know there is more to it than meets the eye. There is another side to it. Duality. This idea aligns with ancient teachings about the nature of reality. In the Hindu tradition, there is the teaching about Maya, which states that the outer realm is illusory, and if we just follow our senses, we may be tricked and deceived by our senses. So the intent of life is to pull back the veil of Maya, her veil of illusion, to behold the larger reality, which includes both an internal reality as well as an external manifestation. Otherwise, we may suffer from attachment to the external illusion. Science is confirming this, being able to see through microscopes and other technologies beyond the reach of the naked eye. Science knows that what we perceive with our senses is not giving us the whole picture. In the Hindu tradition, people wear a red bindi in the middle of their forehead to remind each other to look with more than the eyes, to also use the power of the inner eye to get insight. What we are questing for here in a quest for a theory of everything, including love, is a balanced approach, balancing the scientific and the artistic, outer knowing and inner knowing, because that will engage both sides of our dualistic nature, the linear and lateral, which will honor both our objective and subjective experiences of phenomenon, any phenomenon, including love. When it comes to experiencing the phenomenon of Maya, we should make reference to The Matrix, for those who are familiar with those films. For there we can include the illusions of love when we speak of the power illusion can have over us. There's a scene in The Matrix where Morpheus takes Neo into a training hologram and a woman in red walks by, which turns Neo's gaze. Then Morpheus says, "Look again." It's actually Agent Smith with a gun pointed at Neo's head. Morpheus is teaching Neo about the Maya of the Matrix. In Vedantic philosophy, the concept of Maya refers to the appearance of things in contrast to the actual reality of the thing. The word Maya means not that. The appearance is not the thing. And this aligns with what science is saying more and more about the nature of reality. So in a sense, scientists are now catching up with what the mystics have been saying all along. So now you may be wondering, are you under the spell of illusion? Well, if you think that what you experience through your senses in this temporal unlimited realm of time and space is all there is, then I would have to say yes, you are under an illusion, the spell of Maya. Furthermore, we humans actively perpetuate the nature of illusion in our smoke and mirrors culture, in our advertising, politics, economics, and our love lives. Let me give you an example with this jug of juice I've had on my shelf for several years as a constant reminder of the nature of so-called reality. Fresh and pure. 100% juice. And other ingredients. Fruit juice from concentrate. Water. Puree. Sulfites. Citric acid. Natural flavor. And vitamin C. Fresh and pure. 100% juice. 100% Maya. Now you definitely don't have to be a genius to see there's something wrong with this picture. But the development of our omnidirectional cognition is what it takes to navigate the Maya matrix, which surrounds us and is coming at us from all directions. We are born into a realm where we experience only half-truths, half the picture, misled by our limited perceptions. And we need to tap into the source, give birth to our genius in order to get the whole picture. In fact, the other half of the picture can only be supplied by you, by your own interactivity, not from some book or scientific journal. The whole truth will come by the way we work with our perceptions to piece together the puzzle. Because ultimately, the danger of limitation stems from our own selves, which is the good news, because it means it is within our power to go beyond limitations and become unlimited. The problem is the filters we wear when looking out at the world, the prejudices we carry. We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. So not only do we need to look more closely at things the scientific way, with microscopes and telescopes and clear logical thinking, and also an artistic eye, similar to how Hindu people remind each other with the bindi on the forehead to use the inner eye. But we also need to overcome blockages within ourselves that limit and distort our perceptions. We need to overcome ourselves. We will see this more clearly when we get to the session on the background check on the ego. This is a pivotal point. You have to get active with your perceptions in order to fill in the blanks, to bring the other half to the half-truths of life. It's what you bring to the party that makes it a good party. Same thing could be said about love. Same thing could be said about participation in the school of love. What you do with the information and love assignments will make all the difference in what you get out of it. The school of love supplies 50%. You bring 50%. Then we'll have 100% participation. There's one more question we need to touch on in this opening session, which is called, is there a reason to life? A reason to love? A what question? What is the meaning to it all? The reason to ask this is because meaning and motivation go hand in hand. Meaning gives us motivation, or as I like to call it, motivation. Motivation to move, to act, to evolve. Otherwise, why make an effort when there's no point? No point in putting in the work. No point in putting down the remote, getting off the couch and getting going. We have all this time and space on our hands. For what? Shopping? If there's no reason to life, no reason to love, what's the motivation to go for 100% participation? When it comes to asking the why question about life, science is good at answering who, what, and how, even when and where, but shies away from why. Science says it just is. No reason. Just because. Traditionally, the answers to why have come from the spiritual sector, religious inspiration, ancient sacred teachings, and even further back, the storytellers and myth makers of the world. Basically, the artistic minds of society. There we find the endeavor to answer the question, why is life? Leaving science to answer the what, how, who, when, and where of life. Those answers may be satisfying to the intellect, but the why question is the one that speaks to the will, your motivation. It's the question Agent Smith asked Neo at Matrix Part 3. Why, Mr. Anderson? Why? Why do you do it? Why get up? Why keep fighting? Do you believe you're fighting for something? For more than your survival? Can you tell me what it is? Do you even know? Is it freedom? Or truth? Perhaps peace? Could it be love? Illusions, Mr. Anderson. Vagaries of perception. Temporary constructs of a feeble human intellect trying desperately to justify an existence that is without meaning or purpose. And all of them as artificial as the Matrix itself. Although only a human could invent something as insipid as love. You must be able to see it, Mr. Anderson. You must know it by now. You can't win. It's pointless to keep fighting. Why, Mr. Anderson? Why? Why do you persist? So is Agent Smith correct in his assertions? Is any attempt to find meaning just an invitation to invent meaning? Our feeble human intellect trying desperately to justify an existence that is without meaning or purpose. Is that what our ancestors did over the ages, to while away their time in the mountains and deserts, creating illusions and vagaries of perception, and then passing them along to the next generations? The scientific mind does not want made-up stories in order to be motivated. Modern science wants to approach the phenomenon of life from another direction, from the other side of the brain, you might say, to strip everything back to the bone, making dissection the starting point, then piecing it all back together in hopes of solving the puzzle that way. And through this, science tells us there is a reason for everything. Everything has a reason. Everything can be explained. Yet at the same time says there is no ultimate reason for anything. No answer to why. It's not exactly contradictory, but as far as science can determine, even though there is a reason for everything, there is no reason to it all. However, on a planet of almost 8 billion people, 3/4 of the population still believe there is a reason to existence and hold a belief in a higher purpose, a higher intelligence. So is there something in us that is hardwired to have meaning? If so, how can we know that meaning? Why can't there be a big neon billboard orbiting the Earth to tell us the story, tell us the plan, and the meaning of existence, making it plain and clear, just telling us what to do so we can stop fighting about it and get on with it? Well, as you may have noticed, there is no neon billboard orbiting the Earth, nothing explaining everything, nothing telling us what to do. So where does that leave us? Nowhere? In a meaningless existence? Let us consider the meaning of meaninglessness itself. What is the phenomenon in the meaninglessness? What does it mean that there is no neon billboard orbiting the Earth telling us what's what, telling us what to do? What does that tell us? It tells us we're not being told what to do. It tells us we are free. We're being left free so we can be free. To be a free being. The meaning and the seeming non-meaning is that we are free, or at least meant to be free, or not. That is the message in the meaninglessness, the meaning of the meaninglessness, that life does not impose on us, telling us what to do so we can be free. So the meaninglessness is really seeming meaninglessness, because the meaning and the message implicit in the meaninglessness is that we are free. Free to be, not told what to do, think, or feel. We're to figure it out of ourselves, out of freedom. That's the meaning and the seeming non-meaning. We are meant to be free beings, or not, because we are free. And this may very well satisfy the why of life. It may also solve the problem of no motivation if no meaning. There is a meaning and a motivation in the overarching pursuit of humanity, which is, in a word, freedom. Is this not what everyone is fighting about? Is this not what everyone is fighting for? Freedom fighters? Fighting to be free? Is that not ultimately what it's all about when you boil it all down? Freedom. But this raises another question. From what are we trying to get free? Or to what are we trying to be free? What does freedom actually look like? For some, it might be the pursuit of physical freedom, getting out of a literal prison, or getting out of a mental prison of addiction by going to therapy, or spiritual freedom, getting off the planet, getting liberated from the wheel of karma, and going toward whatever defines spiritual freedom for that person. Freedom may mean free to not wear a mask or be under a lockdown. For another, it may mean free from the threat of a virus by taking a vaccine. The pursuit of freedom is why some people enter into disciplined religious practices, following the words of Jesus. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And ironically, this is also why some people leave religious practices, because they also want to be free, free to do what they want, when they want, and not follow someone else's discipleship or dogma. Some people believe that reason and rationality will lead to the truth and set them free from ignorance, so they pursue freedom that way. Some people think thinking is dead and the mind finite, so they take psychoactive substances to escape the mind. That is their path to liberation. Some people want to be free thinkers, so they think free. Some people find freedom in serving others, so they serve freely. What does freedom look like to you? In the end, it's all about freedom. From the beginning, it's been all about freedom. The pursuit to be free, a free being, is the core impulse that drives the human forward, demands the use of our full powers. I will leave you with this to contemplate. But to bring this session to a close, what has been said so far? In starting out a theory of everything, including love, we saw that the universe, the oneness, is riddled with duality. And out of two-ness is newness, a third constantly being born, producing infinite possibilities and complexity. This is what gives rise to more complex forms of intelligence, the unification of linear thinking with lateral movement to produce threefold intelligence: brain-centered, gut-centered, and in the center of centers, heart-centered intelligence, which is what will allow for omnidirectional cognition and access to the source through our genius, and basically an opportunity to take up the reins of our own evolution, not only exploring the reaches of outer space through our senses, but the other half of the half-truth, the reaches of inner space, through inner activity and inner sight, to skillfully navigate the maze of illusions of the Maya matrix. And through this, fulfill the prime impulse, the prime motivation of our creative forces to become a free being. Or not. These are big points, raising big questions. Along with another big question, the who question. Who does this? Who makes this possible? We will leave this for the next session when we look at the Plan, Planet, going deeper into a theory of everything, including love, and the art and science of love in the School of Love. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there is just too little of. And now for the love assignment to go along with this session. Love assignment number 1. What has given meaning to your life and a seemingly meaningless existence? Write this down and contemplate what has motivated your life so far. Love assignment number 2. What does freedom look like to you? Where do you feel free? Where do you not feel free in your life? And therefore, where do you see the need to become more free in your life? Write this down and get clear on it as a way to get inner sight into your life. The last love assignment, number 3. Contemplate your scores regarding your love capacities. How do you interpret them using both logical and intuitive thinking? And get ready to up your score in the School of Love. You will find a link below that will take you to a web page with the love assignments for each session. In the meantime, peace and love.